Hello. Okay, right, today I'm going to show you how to make tomato and mozzarella bake. This is a really good recipe that you can adapt and change to suit different tastes, different flavours, different textures, depending on what you've got in your cupboards at home. But for the basic recipe, you will need 1 tablespoon of oil, so I'm using vegetable oil here. You will need 1 clove of garlic, so this is a bulb of garlic. You will need 1 clove of garlic, so I've taken a clove out of the bulb already. You will need a can of chopped tomatoes. So there we go, there's a can of chopped tomatoes that I've got there. You can put in half a teaspoon of chili powder just to give it a bit of a kick and a little bit of flavour. You will need 200 grams of pasta shapes. So I'm using the pasta quills. You can use twists, the bows, whatever you have in your store cupboard. You will need 1 ball of fresh mozzarella, so there it is, and when you squidge it you can feel there's lots of water in there and that will need to be drained, so I'll show you that later on. You will need 1 onion, I'm using a red onion, and you will need 25 grams of grated Parmesan cheese. Okay, so there's the grated Parmesan cheese. You could change the cheeses depending on what you have in your fridge. So you may want to put in mature cheddar cheese, or you can put in red Leicester cheese. It's totally up to you. Okay, so I'm going to go through the recipe with you, explaining why you use each recipe, so the function of ingredients. You will use skills such as chopping, grating, peeling, simmering, boiling, baking, frying, layering, and finishing off techniques. So there's lots of different skills that you will be using whilst making this dish. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is boil my pasta. So I've got a large saucepan here, and I've got in here some water and a little bit of salt, so about half a teaspoon of salt for flavour. Remember, we need to limit your intake of salt, so not too much. And I'm going to put that on the hob and I'm going to heat up the water. You will notice that I've turned my pan handle in so that I'm not going to knock that over. I've turned it over this way. This isn't on, so the handle is not going to get hot. So take care of health and safety as well. So I'm using the front left hob, so I'm going to turn on the front left hob on my cooker to just heat that water up. Remember, before you start any cooking, you will need a clean school uniform apron. You will need to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds, and don't forget to wash in between your fingers, the back of your hands, your thumbs, round your wrists and your fingernails. Okay, giving your hands a really good wash and dry them properly. Okay, so whilst I'm waiting for that to heat up and that water to boil, I will then start to prepare my other ingredients. So my onion first of all. Okay, I'm going to use what's called the bridge and claw method to make sure that you're chopping your onion safely. When using your knife, make sure that when you're carrying your knife, you're always carrying it down by your side, holding the black handle. Okay, you never put your knife in a bowl of hot soapy water and leave it there. Somebody could easily go into that bowl, put their hands in and cut their hands by picking up the blade. And when you're finished with the knife, you make sure you store it correctly. At school, we would store it in the knife safety block, so we know that we've got all the knives back in safely. Okay, with your onion then. First thing I'm going to do is with my hand, I'm going to create a bridge shape. My knife goes under the bridge and I'm going to cut that onion in half. You will need to peel the onion, so I'm going to take off the first layer of the skin there. I've got a blue paper towel to keep all of my waste together, so I'm keeping my area as tidy as possible, so I don't want vegetable waste all over the place. Okay, make sure you keep your area tidy, make sure you clean as you go. Alright, Alright, so this is the first half of the onion. I'm leaving the root on, okay, because that's where most of the juice of the onion is concentrated. So to stop me from crying, hopefully, I'm going to leave that root on so I do not disperse all of the juice to prevent that going into my eyes. So with your hand now, you're going to do a claw method. So hand like a bear claw, okay, holding the onion nice and firmly. I'm going to slice towards the root. I'm not going to slice all the way through the root because I want to keep the onion intact so it's not falling apart. I'm going to turn my knife around, all right, and now I'm going to slice through the onion 2 or 3 times like so. Turn my knife around again, and now keeping my slices close together, I will have chopped my onion so I've got smaller pieces. Okay, I don't want really big chunks of onion. I want it finely chopped as best as possible. Okay, so there you can see I've chopped my onion into fine, smaller pieces. Okay, if you don't want too much onion there, you can just use half, or you can do exactly the same with the other half of the onion. Okay, again, it's totally up to you. I'm just going to use half an onion today. Right, my next ingredient I'm going to do, let's put that on the plate, keeping my area tidy, is the garlic. So this is a garlic bulb. Alright, we're using the garlic for flavour, it's to balance out the flavours. I want a garlic clove. Alright, there's really papery sort of skin on the garlic, and that needs to be removed. So I'm going to cut the top and the bottom and then peel off that really thin papery skin. If you have a garlic crusher at home, you can use a garlic crusher to crush your garlic. So in goes the garlic, and then squeeze the 2 handles together, and then onto your plate. You'll be able to then scrape off the garlic that you have crushed, making sure you get it all out of the garlic crusher so you're not wasting anything. If you don't have a garlic crusher at home, you can slice the garlic as thinly as possible. So again, I'm going to take off the top and the bottom of the garlic. I'm going to peel off that thin papery skin, and then you can you can chop the garlic. Now be careful because the garlic is very small. Alright, again using a claw method to hold the garlic and slice very, very thinly. Okay, like so. Alright, can you see that? Alright, the next ingredient then that I'm going to prepare is my mozzarella cheese. So this is really high in calcium. Okay, it's a dairy product. It's going to give flavour and it's going to give texture to your pasta bake as well. It provides vitamins, it provides fat, and like I say, it's a good supplier of calcium. Alright, I need to drain that out. So you can do this over a sink at home. I'm just doing it over a bowl with a sieve. All rubbish in the bin. And then there's your fresh mozzarella. Alright, and that's the water that it gets stored in. So with your mozzarella, you can then slice this into smaller pieces. Or you can tear it. If you want to just tear it with your hands, that's fine too. Okay, so roughly chop that mozzarella. Alright, and then I'm going to grate some Parmesan cheese. So this is really strong in flavour, okay, but it gives a good texture, it gives colour, it gives flavour. Again, it supplies your body with calcium. It supplies your body with protein, like the mozzarella as well. That's a good supplier of protein. Alright, so I'm going to grate the Parmesan cheese, if I can get into it. There we go. And be careful when using a grater. Alright, you do not want to be grating your fingers, you just want to grate the cheese. So I'm going to use the medium-sized grate on the cheese grater there and grate about 25 grams of Parmesan cheese. Okay, and like I said before, if you don't have these type of cheeses in your store cupboard, or if you don't like Parmesan cheese because it's too strong in flavour, you can use cheddar cheese, you can use red Leicester cheese. It's totally up to you. Okay, so that's my cheese prepared. Right, my water has started to boil, ready to cook my pasta. Okay, so very gently you're going to drop your pasta into the water, and you want to boil that for about 10 minutes. Okay, you want to boil it until it's al dente. Al dente means to the bite, so not too hard and not too soft. Okay, so that's in there with boiling salted water. Just give it a little stir so it doesn't stick together, and then leave that to cook. Whilst that's cooking, I can then have a tidy up. Remember, you must always clean as you go. So all my vegetable waste in my blue paper towel now goes into the bin. Make sure your area is tidy, and I will start then to cook pasta sauce for my pasta bake. Alright, so in another saucepan you can add a tablespoon of your vegetable oil. Okay, there we go. And in there you're going to soften your onion and your garlic. So that's the onion and garlic that I prepared earlier. I'm going to add that into my pan with the oil. I'm going to soften that. Okay, so that will take around about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, the main thing here is you do not want to burn your onion. Okay, we don't want to caramelize it, we just want to soften it. And you'll notice as well, I'm using a wooden spoon, I'm not using a metal spoon. Okay, if I use a metal spoon, the handle will start to get hot. Metal is a heat conductor. Alright, so always thinking about safety as well. Okay, so again, make sure the pan handle's turned in. So just think of different special points that I'm talking about here as well. So a special point here is making sure the pan handle's turned in to avoid anybody or yourself from knocking that over. Okay, my pasta has started to boil, so I'm just going to turn it down a little bit. Alright, just give that a stir again, just so it's not all sticking together. And then back to my onion and garlic. So that started to soften nicely, and once that started to soften, you can get your canned tomatoes. Alright, now this canned tomatoes has got a pull ring on here for me to open. You may need to use a tin opener if your can doesn't have a pull ring, so you might need to use a tin opener. Okay, with this pull ring, pull it towards you, put your thumb in the center of the can, and then peel that back. Now be very, very careful because this is very, very sharp. Okay, so be careful how you're opening that. Right, once your onion and garlic has softened, you can very gently pour in your canned tomatoes. Make sure you get it all out, so we don't want to waste anything. That goes straight into the bin to avoid any cuts or accident with the can. Okay, give that a stir. So you've got your onion, you've got your garlic in there, and you've got your canned tomatoes. You can also add in your half a teaspoon of chili if you add in that as well. Okay, Again, clean as you go. All my dirty pots are on the dirty side of my sink, keeping everything nice and tidy. So give that a stir and then let that gently simmer so all the flavours start to combine. Now simmer is very gentle bubbles, okay? We don't want a rolling boil. My pasta is on a rolling boil where you've got big bubbles. This is just a simmer where you've got small bubbles and it started to heat up, okay? All right, at this point, if you was adapting the recipe, you could add things like red and green peppers would be quite nice in here. You could add maybe some olives. You could add in some cooked bacon, which would be nice. You could add in some canned sweet corn. So again, this recipe is really, really adaptable depending on what you've got in your cupboards already. Okay. Right, so whilst that's boiling, I'm going to put on my oven because this does need to go into the oven so you get a really nice crispy topping. So whilst they're cooking, my onion is preheated to 200 degrees C, about gas mark 5, ready to for me to put in the pasta bake. So we need to preheat the oven, okay? All right, let's give this pasta sauce a stir. So it's simmering nicely, it's gently bubbling, it's gently combining all of those flavours together. You could add some seasoning in here, so a little bit of salt. Remember, like I said before, this is for flavour, but you need to limit your intake of salt. So you can put a little bit in, but not too much. We've already added the chili powder. Okay, so in preparation for when my pasta's cooked, you are going to use a colander. This is a colander, all right, big bowl with lots of holes in to drain the pasta. Be very, very careful because obviously this is boiling water, okay? So be careful when draining your pasta. Maybe if you're doing this at home, get an adult to help you with that, okay? So there's my colander ready. My pasta is boiling. My sauce is simmering nicely. It smells absolutely delicious in here. Make sure you tidy your area, so clean as you go. So I'm going to put my dirty pots on the dirty side of the sink, ready to be washed up. And my cheese grater, everything on the dirty side of the sink. Alright, in preparation for when my pasta goes into the oven, I've got a baking tray and I've got an oven-proof dish. So I'm just using a foil takeaway dish here. You may have a glass Pyrex dish at home that you can put into the oven for your pasta bake to cook once it goes into the oven. Okay. Right, we're nearly ready. So like I said, your pasta needs to be al dente, to the bite. Not too hard, not too soft, okay? You could take a piece out and you can try that. Be careful, it will be hot. So make sure that you blow the pasta before you try it, okay? And then you can try that to see if it's cooked. If it's too hard, then you carry on cooking the pasta for a little bit longer, okay? That needs probably another minute or so before that's ready. Remember, when you are tasting anything you're cooking, you do not double dip, okay? So once you've tasted something, do not put the utensil into the cooking pot on a second time, okay? Always use a clean spoon when taking food out when you are tasting. Okay. So this is looking delicious, all right? You can see in there that it's started to combine together. The flavors are started to combine and the sauce is started to reduce. So what's happening is the moisture is being cooked off, so there's not as much water in there. So as that flavor starts to reduce, the flavour is going to get much more intense and much flavoursome, okay, as it starts to cook. Right, let's start putting this together then. So here's my colander. My pasta is now ready, so I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to go over to the sink to drain my pasta into the colander. Remember, if you're doing this at home, get an adult to help you, all right? So I've got a pan stand here. I don't want to be burning my work surface, so hot pans on a pan stand. There's my pasta, which I'm going to put into my oven-proof dish. Okay. And then turn my pasta sauce off. That's going to go into my oven-proof dish. Like so. And we're going to combine this then together. Can you see that? So mix it all together in the dish. Those flavours are smelling delicious. And then I'm going to add on the cheese. So on goes my mozzarella, all the way over the top, nice and even. And sprinkle on my Parmesan cheese, like so. Make sure it's evenly spread. Alright, so that's now ready to go into the oven. Okay, can you see that? So that needs to go into the oven for about 15 minutes until the cheese is melted and you get a nice crunchy topping. Remember, when you're putting things in the oven, you use oven gloves, okay, holding the baking tray securely. Maybe get an adult to help you if you are doing this at home. So that's going to go in there for 15 minutes until the cheese is melted and it's a nice crunchy topping. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. This is what you're going to do as your home learning, and I'm looking forward to seeing lots of photographs and for you to complete your cooking journal based on tomato and mozzarella pasta bake. Okay.